Good morning, family. I believe it is still morning. I got in here before 12. Yeah, I was scheduled for 11:45 and I knew I hadn't waited that long, but I've got so much stuff coming at me right now that I really need to hunker down and focus as people are still in this community reeling from the young lady who lost her life over at Ann Arbor Pioneer. And then we just had another one come up missing yesterday. And it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. And then I really just became known of someone who's been missing for about 3.5 months. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But because we are in the beginning stages of Black History Month, I've got some things to talk about there as well. So it's going to be kind of a hodgepodge thing. We'll get a little bit of the house cleaning stuff out of the way. We definitely want to acknowledge these children that are missing. I'm not going to speak much on Addie right now because I've got something scheduled with one of the people who's on the front lines of that. And we're going to be speaking on the platform soon. But I am going to talk about these two youngins that are missing right now in Washtenaw County. And then we'll jump right into the stream. I'm going to hit the intro music, send my shares out, and then come back and we're going to cook. Let's go.
This revolution is filled with so many ironies, really. First, you tell us that it is manly to keep your word, right? If you are a man, you keep your word. And now all of the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well, then show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well, then stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all. Or else admit to us that you're not a man, you're a bird, you're afraid of us, you're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground, that we will match you and we will override you.
can kill all the black folks you want to, baby, but you will not kill the freedom of black folks. It's coming. We're going to get it. We fought every one of your damn lousy wars, baby, and you give us nothing. Now, the war is going to be here, but we're going to be free. Now, you kill you want to, but we kill too.
Good afternoon, fam. It is 11:55. I think I just said good morning. I said good afternoon, but we starting in the morning and we will definitely end in the afternoon. Uh-oh, I put the loop on this time. My fault. I was in here playing around and I stuck the loop on again. My fault. Let me go ahead and stop that now. How unprofessional was that? But it's only a couple of us in here right now, so don't worry about it. I literally am puzzled right now as to what's going on in this county. They really don't have it all together about Addie's death. I've just kind of come to know her as Addie, as many conversations that I've had with people that did know her, did know the family, and then it just seemed like that was the name she was more or less known by, or AD. So I've become familiar with that young lady, and, you know, God rest her soul. Her family out there that needs peace. Her mother, who I just learned had a stroke not too long ago. Her family needs to get peace, and they need to get closure, and hopefully they'll get that soon enough. I know it's got to be difficult for them out here right now, and we just need to lift them up and keep them right in good spirits and whatnot. It's the second day of Black History Month, y'all. And y'all know I have a indifference with Black History Month. It's not that I don't want to see my people saluted. I want to see us saluted for the right things, okay, and not just trivial things, not just things that we might look at as great accomplishments, but, you know, I can only hear about certain people for so long. You know, it's not that I haven't enjoyed the entertainment of someone, whether they be a singer, a dancer, an athlete, you know, or even some of our more known civil rights activists, or, you know, people that came from the educated world and medical fields, this, that, and the other. I mean, how long are we just going to continue to spin those same records? And they want us to spin those same records and really not think about anything else during this 28 days, or we would have accesses to do more. But I don't think we'll have greater accesses ever to do anything unless we are repaired. And that comes with the full schedule of reparations for descendants of American chattel slaves. The debt is owed to our ancestors, but they're no longer here, and that's why we're here to collect. When I speak on this platform, for those who are going to be new, hearing some things, I actually am sharing to some new pages today. Thanks for the invite to Can't Stop, Won't Stop. And there's a couple other pages this month that are jumping on, heard about me through wherever. I appreciate that. And we look to get the message out to more people. I mean, that's really what it's about. Sometimes I really don't care whether I get live viewers or not. It's just a matter of where the message that I share it to, if it can be seen down the line, down the road by someone, that's most important to me. Sister Tony, how you doing today? From Beantown. And I appreciate you. Thank you. And it's one of those things where I've looked all the way around this thing, and what I figured out the most is, if my message is solid, it will travel. Because there's messages out here that aren't solid and they travel far. So I know if I keep my message solid, it will travel and it will get to its eventual destinations. What I'm going to be coming to you with today is actually kind of a recast. I did a cast a while back talking about the way we were treated starting back in the 1800s, really all the way until probably the 1950s, 1960s. I don't have an actual date of when it stopped because truthfully, it could still be going on right now. And I want to get into that and I want to talk about that. And I know it may not sound very celebratory, but you'll understand once you start to get into the message with me. So just hang in there. I've got that boomerang game, Sister Tony. And what my thing is going to happen, what's going to happen here is I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening locally because we've got some missing children. We've got a young lady who's actually been missing since October 19th, I believe it says. October 19th was when she first came up missing. At 4 a.m., they said she left a note, I believe, and it spoke of self-harm, but her body has never been found. So was that some type of note to throw people off? And was she lured? Was she groomed and snatched? Nobody really is talking about it. And I just learned about it, truthfully, Monday, maybe Tuesday. So I'm posting about it now. We need to find this young lady taken from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Who knows where she could be at this point, but it's getting virtually no coverage anywhere, whether it be our local, news stations, local newspapers, digital and whatnot. I've seen it nowhere. Now, I know that this came from the Crime Stoppers page. It's an image that I set up for my own platform, but I have not really seen anything on where this young lady is. And if anybody has seen her, talk to anybody that knows of her. But if you have, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to the authorities. They've got to bring this young girl home. 3.5 months ago, she disappears and nobody really is talking about it. So I want to be one of those people that at least puts it out there the best that I can. And hopefully people will continue to share the posts that I'm putting out as well that speak on her, being missing. Her name is Samia Nunley. Excuse me about that. Now, A.U. Kaur came up missing yesterday. She came up missing yesterday. I guess she gets picked up normally from school. And they missed the pickup. I don't really know the logistics into it more than that. They said parents were there for the pickup and she purposely avoided them. So they're thinking that she possibly could have gotten groomed and lured into someone's car willfully. Nobody jumped out, snatched her, threw her into a van. It looks like she willfully went wherever she went to. But I've been talking about this for years. And I feel like I personally slipped where Natty was coming up over these last couple of years. As a man, you don't want to be too overbearing, especially in today's settings. And because I've been humbled in my role and my duties as a father biologically, it was difficult for me to be that overbearing parent with Natalie. So she was granted freedoms that I probably wouldn't have always granted on my own, but I never saw her to be in any type of trouble or felt like she was in any type of danger. When she did start to encounter a lot of kids online, or I thought there were kids online during the high points of COVID. She was talking to a lot of people, playing a lot of games, and she would say, I'm talking to this person, they're in Turkey, this, that, and the other. I never believe anything. Whenever anybody says they're in Turkey, they're here, they're there, I think they're right next to you. I truly believe, I think that that's how they start a lot of times, because they can come off as very non-confrontational. Somebody starts saying that they're right where you are, then it may give you the creeps, and maybe they don't want to creep you out. Then there's people that are just be like, yeah, I'm in Indiana, I'm in Illinois, you're in Michigan, we're not that far from each other. Hey, if I'm ever around, bam, 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 let's hook up. That's how a lot of these things happen. And it starts out to be this harmless thing. Yeah, we're just going to meet up at the mall. We're just going to go to the mall. We're just going to go to the movies. We're just going to do this and do that. And then it turns into, where the fuck is my kid? I'm glad we're out of that stage now. You know, she just turned 18. She made it through all those storms, never really had any stranger danger situations. But for the parents out there that are experiencing that, or they're going to be experiencing that, giving the freedoms and things like that up to your kids, you still got to be on your kids. I let up. I'm just telling you, it's not the best thing to do. Stay on your kids, folks. Stay on your kids, know where they are, know their whereabouts, do what you got to do, because we are entering into dark times where people just don't meet each other and hang out no more. You've got predatory spirits. Most time they're older than your kids, so they've got more game than your kids, so they know how to maneuver out here. And what you're going to do is you're going to run into a situation where it's too late because you weren't in your kid's life because you wanted to give them some freedoms. And I'm not saying that AU's parents did that or Samuel's parents did that. I'm not saying any of that. But Samuel was at home and she got taken. AU was at school and she got taken. So it doesn't always happen when the parents aren't around. Parents were there to pick the kid up. Parents are in the home at 4 a.m. So it can happen at any given time. And I just want to make sure that people are mindful that we don't live in the same times that we did back in the day. And kids got snatched back in the day, you know, but it happens so much more frequently and it's so much more sophisticated now, the way it happens, because that's what they're using, the terms of luring or grooming. You know, they're making your kid comfortable and the kid's sharing all their problems at home, and that person is sharing maybe their problems, their alleged problems. And what happens is they get your kid on their side, and before you know it, you ain't shit, and they're the master, they're the king, they're the queen, and your kid is gone before you know anything. So we just have to be mindful of that and make sure that we protect our kids at all costs, at all times, and just know where they're at. Just understand where they're at. Oh, yeah. That's very true, Free. They can kidnap you if you're an adult. I don't know. I guess it's not kidnapping when you're an adult, but it's something. It's adult napping. I don't know. But they can take you. People get snatched all the time as adults. This isn't just happening to minors. There's just an uptick of it right now. So you just got to be able to stay on your kids. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, Brother Larry. And where these kids are being sought after now, they're not just running into, we're not dealing with like the Atlanta child murderers type thing where that predator pretty much honed in on one area of underserved people and pretty much knew they could have their way in that community. We're talking about well-to-do areas that kids are coming up missing in, and it's a different type of predator. So they're dealing with a different type of individual, different type of accesses. So we have to be very, very cognizant of what our kids are getting into when they're not around us. If your kid says they're going to a game, you damn well better make sure they're going to the game. And they go to the game, oh, we're going to go grab something to eat. Where are they going to grab something to eat? Who are they with? That's one thing that I was always a stickler with when she was a little bit younger. Who y'all going to be with? Where y'all going? This, that, and the other. That's what I fear the most, because I don't have any control. If I can't see you, I don't have no control. That bothers me, not to have that type of control. I don't really need to be there, but if I don't know where you're at, I feel like I have no control. I guess the term would be abduction there. I don't know how I had a brain freeze there, but it would be an abduction. So I appreciate everybody that's in here early. I had to get that out of the way. Once again, appreciate you, Sister Tony, for coming through. Appreciate your page, taking the content, sharing the content. Y'all doing good work out there. We're going to get to where we need to be in this reparation space. We just got to get a lot of these provocateurs and different things out of here. But that's why I'm cooking the way I'm cooking this month, because I don't want it to be 28 days to where we lose consciousness and we go out and waste a whole month of doing things. So I got in here today to really do some damage to white supremacy. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of people to celebrate today. But I am going to kick white supremacy in the balls today. Well, maybe I won't kick white supremacy in the balls today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some balls at white supremacy today. Mr. Friedman, I found you from Infoman's page, watching your videos. Very good information, straight facts. Thanks for what you, I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Kai Stone. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just speak from the heart, and I try to do it unapologetically. Some people like it, some people don't, but, you know, I'm not going to stop being me. But like I said, I did a cast a while back, and I was speaking of how we were treated starting in the 1800s, and from what I know, possibly ended somewhere in the mid-50s, early 60s. And I want to bring a screen share up, because what we're going to be doing, you're going to be seeing me, but you're going to be seeing me talking from a previous stream that I had. And I want to make sure that everybody understands where I'm coming from, or where I came from with this stream. I am absolutely in the same frame of mind. I just may be a tad more polished on my delivery with things, but I'm going to cook this stream from when I did it a couple years ago. And I titled this stream here, you know, We Were the Game. And I did this stream back in Black History Month. I think it was 21, if I'm not mistaken. Give me one quick second. Give me one quick second. I can tell you exactly when I did it. Ah, crap. It was originally, I put this stream up February 12th, 2021. So a couple years ago. And I called it Moments in Black History When Blacks Were a Carnival Game. So what I want to do is I want to go through and I'm going to recast a lot of that. And we want to chop up the dialogue based on what we're going to hear, what you're going to hear. This is new to most. Only a few people watched it on YouTube. I think there might be a couple hundred views on Facebook with it. But a lot of people didn't really understand where I was coming from at the time. So I've got to break this down now, because I think it's even more pertinent after dealing with a couple years of COVID, and people really don't understand the trickery that has been played upon our people. So I want to let it roll out, get moving, and then I'm going to stop it, and we're going to chop up dialogue as we move. Thanks, cuz. Appreciate you. Everyone has a choice to listen or not. Absolutely. I don't concern myself with whether people, you know, like it or not. If they hear, they hear. If they hear and they don't like it, then they're a masochistic individual. If they're here and they like it, then I love it. If you're here and you don't like it, I love it. I got to do what I got to do the way I got to do it, because that's the only way I know. And I'm only going to take advice from folks that have either done it, that are doing it, or that are just souls that I know are coming from a pure space and they're trying to help the platform out. But let's cook on this, and let me bring the screen up. So this was me 2 years ago, and I'm going to let it rock, and we're going to get into it. But I wanted to talk about a moment in Black history. Well, it just wasn't one moment. It actually went on for many, many, many years, you know. Truly started in the 1800s and went off into the mid 1900s. You know, it was a game that was played. I guess it was a game within the game, you know, and you could pretty much go to any fairgrounds, county fairgrounds, state fairgrounds, carnivals, things like that. and they used to have a carnival game called Hit the Nigger Baby. And this was a game that they allowed kids to play. This wasn't adults, kids to play. So, they're looking at a baby. They're looking at someone that is just a tad bit smaller than them, or maybe even a small child. And they were throwing baseballs to hit a baby. They had games where they same type of game. It was either hit a nigger baby or hit a coon, African Dodger. There was multiple names that they chose for this game. And it was basically where a black person just stuck their head through a hole and baseballs were hurled at them for a fee. We go to carnivals now and we try to knock bowling pins over, or we use water guns and try to squirt them into those little holes and try to race right across. Well, at this date or these dates, they had a game called Hit a Nigger Baby, hit a coon, hit a nigger, draft dodger, African Dodger. And you have to think, like, why would this need to be a game? I mean, if you just want to hit something, and it leads into something like dunk tanks. At first, nobody got into a dunk tank but black people. They put black people in the dunk tank, and then you try to knock the black person into the water, and when you get hit, there's that surprise. You go down and you look like you can't swim, and there was a lot of fear in there. But when I think about this type of game that was played at carnivals and fairs, and the hundreds of thousands to millions of people that took part of this. And see, a lot of people would want to say, well, yeah, that's how the South was. But the images that I'm actually looking at, and I dug stuff up purposely because I wanted to break down that this shit didn't just happen in the South. The picture that I'm actually looking at, it happened in Wisconsin. And then there's another picture that it happened in Indiana. And if you know anything about geography, if it happened in Wisconsin and it happened in Indiana, chances are it happened in Michigan. So I want to stop it there because that just kind of brings me to where I need to show something else, just to bring validity to what we're talking about today. This was the game. This was just one of the images, and I got this image off of the Ferris State University website. They've got a whole historical museum up at Ferris State, a Jim Crow museum. And this comes off of the Ferris State website. And when you look at something like this, you have to wonder, like, the humanity or the lack thereof that it took for a child to throw a baseball at another child whose head was sticking through a hole. Children don't do this to one another. But children who are, and we're going to use the words that they're using nowadays about these kids that are being taken, being abducted, being snatched. We are looking at kids that were groomed. They were groomed. Yes. And when you have kids that are groomed into this type of behavior, they're absolutely going to do as they see adults do. And they had games like this. And the reason that I used the image, the original image of the YMCA logo and that African Dodger baseball, because they use that name. See, I guess what they did to us was maybe they already seen that as inhumane. So instead of calling the game out and out, hit a nigger baby, they called it African Dodger. African Dodger. Okay. But this is the original logo of the YMCA on the left. And these games happened a lot at fairs that the YMCA would put on. Now, keep in mind that the YMCA started in London. Didn't start over here. Came over here, I guess, maybe like 7-8 years after they had got it started. But the YMCA started in London. That's why it's so funny when I hear people talk from London talking about there's no racism in London. I'm like, wait a minute. Y'all were one of the major provocateurs of racism and bigotry back in the 1800s. How can you say there ain't no racism in the UK? This is where y'all started stuff. Y'all had African Dodger. Y'all had hit a nigger baby at y'all fairs. But people like to remember certain things like the YMCA, but then they like to forget certain things like hit a nigger baby. I mean, let's be honest. This is probably not the best campaign photo for your promotion, but then again, it could be, because what did they used to send out? They used to send out postcards with black men being lynched. And that would make it through the United States Postal Service. You can't send stuff like that now. If they see something like that now, that would be considered hate mail. But that used to go through the United States Postal Service. Postcards with black men hanging from trees. So I'm sure there were a couple hit a nigger baby postcards. There had to be. But I had to bring up the image before I got too deep into what I was speaking on a couple years ago, just so we didn't get out of line. It's got to incense you, right, Free? It's got to incense you. But let's continue to cook on where we were and where I was just a couple years ago. Okay? Chances are it happened in Michigan. Now, did anybody do anything to stop it? Probably not until it became something that, maybe politicians or somebody just said, this is just a bad situation and it stopped. But this is well after slavery. This is into the 40s, into the 50s that things like this were done. So when people talk about, that slavery and Jim Crow and all that stuff was so long ago, the 40s and 50s, they had a game called Hit a Nigger Baby. Hit a coon, hit a nigger, African Dodger, shit like that. Now, I'm only 51. So we're talking from 1950 to 1970. It was only 20 years until I was born. This shit ain't been gone that long. It ain't been gone that long. So the scars are still there. It says this image is an authentic, and it shows a 1942 YMCA brochure. Now, this was a YMCA brochure, okay? Brochures go out to everybody's house. So this was a featured event that they put on the YMCA brochure for Camp Miniconny, okay? So you knew if your kid went to Camp Miniconny in the summertime, they were going to get an opportunity to hit the nigger baby, also known as the Black Dodger or hit the coon. This was a game that they would play at the YMCA camp, the YMCA. So when people tell me that things were so long ago and this is that, and I'm holding on, YMCA. All right. We know. So I jumped my own shark there, got ahead of myself there, just because I know and I remember this so well when I did this. And I also know that not that many people were really up on what I was speaking about just a couple years ago. I try to tell people, I've been saying the same things over and over for years. And obviously there's some new content that I've developed, but this really hit home. What's good, Sister Shanna, my fellow Aquarian? Yeah, the alligator baby bait postcards are just as bad. And if I'm not mistaken, I do mention that in here as well. Some of the things that have happened to us on this soil are absolutely insulting. I mean, it's insulting because when people talk about people that have come through history and how they revere them and they respect them, there is absolutely no way that you could see us this way, but y'all saw us that way. And I know most of the people that I'm talking about today weren't around during these times, but your ancestors were. Some of your living relatives were. And that's why I say today, it don't pay me nothing, not a dime, for somebody to say, well, I'm not racist. I don't say those things. I don't need you to not be racist no more. I need you to speak against it. And I need you to speak for repair of my people that your people helped create the detriment to. So if you can't do that, you're not my friend. You're not my friend. You're not my associate. You're not my ally. Anybody that stands mute, stay over there. You stay over there. That's where I'm at in this world. Because if you with me, you with me. Because when I throw stones, you better have a rock in your hand too. Don't let me get to throwing stones and I look over and you ain't got no rocks in your hand. Or if you ain't willing to pick up a rock, stand over there. You can be my target. I'm good with either way. I'm 52, almost 53 calendars up in here. I have no reason for friends that are not allies. Don't need them. Done kick many of friends that aren't allies to the curb. And that's where we're going to be from this point on. I'll die by myself. Hopefully my kids will come around. Hopefully my grandkids will come around. But I will leave this bitch by myself if you are not an ally. I don't need you. I've had enough betrayal for 4 lifetimes. I'm good with it. Oh, we've seen the postcards that used to be sent out of people being hung. You know, a collage of people being hung with nooses around their neck. This was something that traveled through the postal service. I mean, if I'm a postal person and I see that shit, I'm throwing that shit out. But not them postal people. They was mailing that shit. They was sending that. And this was going across the country and this, that, and the other. It's a little louder for me. I don't know if it's actually loud for y'all or not, but the music's just a little loud for me. So yeah, it's one of those things where now I look at the type of disrespect that we went through. You know, it says this was a common fairground game in which players hurled objects, usually eggs or baseballs, at African American people, serving as human targets. We were serving as human targets. No, we were being forced to do this. There was no service here. You know, this was something we were being forced to do. Who puts their head in a hole? There's a deeper meaning here that I'm going to. But who puts their head through a hole knowing that they're going to have baseballs hurled at them? Okay. It sounds like a common carnival target game, but there was an unsettling part of the game, namely the game's target was a real live human being, a Negro human being. See, it wasn't just a human being, it was a Negro human being. Thanks, T. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I had to make that known then. So for the people that were either short bussing it or really not understanding, This just wasn't your standard carnival game. These games were directed at my people. These games were directed at American freedmen, Black Americans. This just wasn't a game that everybody participated in. If you've ever seen a Black person throwing a baseball at a white person's head, please send it to me. If you've seen a Black man, a Black woman, a Black child hurling a baseball at a white man, white woman, or white child, please send it to me. That's what I want people to understand. These weren't games that were set up for America. This was a bigoted game that was set up against Black Americans. Nah. See, this is for all those BIPOCers, for all those POCers, for all those minorities. It wasn't none of that. It was us and it was them. And when people start trying to talk and try to justify why this happened, why that happened, no. They held court, therefore they could do. If they tried to do that shit today, come on now. We might not be repaired, but we ain't that broken. If anybody got wind of somebody having this type of game played against a faction of people on this soil today, y'all ain't seen no riots, y'all. Y'all ain't seen no uprisings, y'all. This was the most belittling type of act that you could have. Besides, instead of pony rides, they had ride a nigga ride. Grown men crawling around on all fours, and they would put little children on them as if they were some type of a pony. Y'all ain't seen images of that? And unfortunately, you won't hear right now because I didn't upload it. But there is an image out there. I'll get it on a later stream. Unprepared, I guess you could call me. But the main attraction is this video that I'm recasting to show we were the game. And the symbolism of it today is how we're being played as pawns in the game. No, they ain't throwing baseball at us. They just throw Barack Obama's at us. Kamala Harris is at us. Raphael Warnock's at us. That's what they throw at us. They throw your Auntie Maxine at us. I just don't want to be distorted. I really don't care how I look because it's not going to get any better on my end. But the way my sound is, that matters to me. Because I can't correct none of this, but I can correct sound and I can correct levels and things like that. And I just need to make sure that my message is going out the right way. Since in our research of newspaper archives, we found evidence of the games being staged as early as the 1880s and as recently as the 1950s. In several instances, the stand received top billing in newspaper bulletins promoting upcoming carnivals and fairs, along with the shooting gallery and the fish pond. So the shooting gallery we talked about, and the fish pond, you drop your little thing in there, you try to get something. This was one of the top attractions at carnivals and fairs. We have state fairgrounds here. We had state fairs. We've had carnivals. We have county fairs. You can't tell me that Hit a Nigger Baby wasn't part of the game's roster in Michigan. I don't have any Michigan footage here, but it says in Brownstown, Indiana, this happened. Make this big week your vacation time. Bring the family, meet old friends, meet the nigger babies, hit the nigger babies, eat hot dogs. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. I mean, they put a lot of effort into these promotions back in the day. Put a lot of effort into it. And you're just seeing one of the images. There's many at many different fairs and carnivals and things like that. And when I found this, I was like, damn, they even took the time to stencil the baseball. So I don't know if this baseball was softer or harder, bigger or smaller, but they stenciled the baseball. I mean, if you did hit the black person, did you get to keep the baseball? I mean, what was the significance of having African Dodger actually on the ball? They designated certain baseballs to throw at black people. No, I don't take those. Those aren't for the game. Those are for the hit a nigger baby game. This is real, y'all. And from what we know, it didn't slow up until the 50s. Until the 50s. So when people talk about how far we've come from slavery and even times before, the 50s, y'all was throwing baseballs at us that had African Dodger on them, and the game was called Hit a Nigger Baby. Hit a nigger baby. And it all started at the YMCA. The place where you should be able to go feel comfortable as a black person and go get your workout in, go swim. You can take your family. Not back in the day. Not back in the day. And I know the logo has changed since then, but I always like to go with that authentic, with that OG logo. Because this was their thought process. Because look in the center of that logo, and the center of that logo is the Bible. Yeah, I've been on the black church's head for a minute, and I'm going to stay on the black church's head. I wonder how many black church members across the country have YMCA memberships. If every black person across the U.S. took their membership out of the YMCA, could it cripple them? Could it hurt them at all? I don't know. Let's try. When you learn these things, what they say, when you know better, do better. Yeah, we need to do better. This was the YMCA, sponsored by John the Baptist. Okay. Dogs enjoying the fun. This was all a part of their promotion. I mean, you didn't just go out for the Ferris wheel, for the bumper cars, to ride the ponies. You brought your family out to hit the nigger babies. Hit the nigger babies, eat a hot dog. That's pretty much the way it was. Hey, what's happening? So you have to, I got life happening around me. So if y'all see or hear anything else, you hear some dogs scurrying, they getting fed. How's work? Good. But yeah, this was part of a regular thing that you would see when you went to a county fair, went to a carnival, or even went to day camp or overnight camp. You know, there was a game. And some people know about this stuff, but a lot of people still don't. And when they say things like this happened a long time ago, I'm reading it for you as recently as the 1950s. And I invite anybody to go look at it because I'm reading it off of the fact check site. So just in case anybody wants to say, oh, where'd you get that info? I'm reading it off the fact check site. So there you go. In November 1935, the Iowa newspaper Lake Park News recounted a recent successful high school carnival, which featured a musical show and a thrilling athletic event, touting that after the show, the crowd enjoyed themselves in visiting various booths or trying to wring a duck's neck in a tank of water or hit the nigger baby. So this was a 1-2 attraction. You either wrang a duck's neck in a tank of water or hit the nigger baby. This is the top 2 attractions at the carnival. I don't want to hear nothing from nobody unless you can tell me what were your people thinking. What were they thinking in something like this here? Really? Y'all was snapping ducks' necks. Hit a nigger baby. Those were the 2 top things. Those were the 2 top things at y'all carnivals. This is what y'all thought about. Not getting on the carousel, not getting on the roller coaster, not getting on the Ferris wheel with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, going up to the top, getting stuck at the top, getting that first kiss. Y'all top 2 attractions was wring a duck's neck and hit a nigger baby. Yeah. Okay. All right. This is real shit. One vignette from the St. Petersburg Times gives a particularly disturbing sense of the popularity of the game, describing how residents of St. Petersburg, Florida, celebrated Labor Day. Who can hit the nigger? By 3 chances to hit the nigger with all of the vigor of a professional ballyhoo man. The laborer drew the crowd to the side attraction at the Labor Day celebration at Waterfront Park Monday afternoon. A grinning Negro boy, his head stuck through an opening of a sheet, awaited the battering of eggs thrown at him by the majority of the St. Petersburg star pitchers. So they had actual baseball players hurling eggs at this baby. From the width of his grin, he enjoyed it almost as much as the crowd. So they're basically saying that this young black boy enjoyed having eggs being thrown at him. It just makes no sense to me. One where the goat wasn't a goat, for only a few of the eggs found their mark. Take it easy, go slow, take your time. 1, 2 gone, 3, try again. Thus the man in charge, as contestant after contestant tried his luck, as the women only looked on and laughed at their men's attempts. One boy, determined and amid the jeers of the crowd, took 3 tries, missing all of them until his last. The crowd grew larger and larger until the ball game started, when it rapidly dwindled, the Tampa St. Petersburg game being more of an attraction than hit the nigger baby. So we talk about humanity. And when I think of barbaric behavior, okay? When I think of barbaric behavior, I tend to think about men. Let me just be honest. When I think about barbarians, I think about men or Viola Davis and the Woman King. I get it. But I think about men. Shout out to Viola Davis with the Oscar nomination snub. Told your ass you shouldn't have took that movie, girl. Anyways, and even though I didn't watch Black Panther, hopefully Angela Bassett wins just so I can see what she wears that night. When I think of barbaric behavior, got a little thrown off there by thinking about Angela Davis. Angela Bassett, not Angela Davis. Good Lord. No. Either way, past and present. No. She was a writer, but, you know, she is definitely on a side for sore eyes. Anyway, let me stay on focus here. Angela Bassett will get you thrown off. Sorry. She's 64, 65, look like that? Okay. All real, too, they said. I mean, she's had no enhancements. That's just all Angie. I appreciate it. We got to get back on focus. Or this whole cast about to turn into what's Angela got to do with it. Humanity. We're talking about humanity. When I think of barbaric behavior, I see men, I see males, not men, but males a lot of times. Can't say every barbarian is not a man, but in this case, barbaric behavior was presented by males, white males, European peasants. And when they talked about the ladies standing around laughing, although they might have not been throwing baseballs and eggs and whatever they could at black people, they lauded their men to do so. They applauded. They held their jackets. They held their hats. They held whatever they were carrying so they could hurl objects at black people. So when I think of the lack of humanity from those females, because those weren't ladies, and those males, I think of Carolyn Bryant. Everybody knows who Carolyn Bryant is. So I think of Carolyn Bryant when I think of those type of females. There you go. And we're sitting right in the middle of it. This is why I did the stream. It's all about race with Tyree Nichols and those 5 black miscreants. It's all about race because there ain't no way, Brother Larry, there ain't no way that those 5 individuals would have beat a white man to death. There ain't no way. We still are the game. We still are the game. They just not throwing baseballs at us anymore. It's anything from fists to bullets. We still are the get. We still are the prey to the predators. And these predators just happen to look like Tyree. But because they wore badges, they were no longer black. They were blue. Now I hope they're going to be in orange or gray or whatever them uniforms they're going to put these clowns in. Because we got problems. We got problems here. We are still the prey to the system. And the only way that we get away from being the prey is to be repaired. And that's why I said, if you're not speaking with me, you're speaking against me. Anybody that tells me or tries to justify why we haven't been repaired, you're not my friend. You're not my ally. And please don't be from another collective of people that's gotten resources up out of the United States of America's ass. Any American Jewish person that steps to me and says, well, how would they do it, Shannon? The same way they've been paying your people since the Holocaust. If you're coming at me with a feather in your cap, don't talk to me. Go talk to them people on the reservation and figure out how they got their money. If your people were in detainment camps, holla at me. Let me know what y'all did to get yours. Don't ask me how they would do it for me. How did they do it for yours? So only the baseball game got people away from hitting the nigger baby. That's crazy to me. But that's America. This is some real shit. Like I said, as expected, injuries resulting from the game were commonly had, especially when baseballs were used instead of eggs. In 1887, the New York Sun recounted a bad day at the Westchester County Fair by noting that everything seemed to go wrong. The African Dodger was disabled. A very hard ball had explored a very soft region of his cranium, and he was laid up for repairs. Like a fucking car, he was laid up for repair. They hit him in the cranium with a baseball, and it says he was laid up for repairs. You see? This man probably received brain damage, and they had to take him out to paint because obviously they didn't have a spare nigger that day. So they had to shut the game down, disappointing much of the carnival because this man laid up with cranium damage. They said they had to lay him up for repairs. So obviously, at some point, he went back to work. At some point, the person who was hit in the cranium with a baseball went, because if he's laid up for repairs, once he's fixed, he's good as new. He's good as new. He can go back to work. Don't y'all understand? This was going on until the 50s, maybe 60s. Who knows? Could be 70s. Hell, there were slaves still on plantations in the 1900s. This is why we can never, ever forget. This is why shucking and jiving does not pay. This is why we can't stop until we are repaired. Now, y'all can do whatever you want to do during the 28 days of Black History Month, but just don't say nothing negative about what I'm doing. All I'm doing is trying to scratch your brain. I told you. All that other stuff makes me scratch my head. I'm trying to scratch your brain. Don't shoot the messenger, because I shoot back. The Sun also reported with no apparent concern for the man that another Negro procured to do the African Dodgers act. So once they hit somebody, they didn't shut the game down for the day. If a ride fucks up at the carnival, if a ride fucks up at an amusement park, it's over. They take that ride off the slate. But not when you playing hit a coon, hit a nigger, let's go find another one. They didn't shut the game down. I mean, this man had cranium damage. That probably would have been to shut the game down if we're talking about real human beings. But we're not talking about real human beings. We're talking about animals. We're talking about people who had no regard for our lives. So when people tell you it's a long ago, no, not long ago, just 1950s. Just the 1950s when it stopped. Who knows? There could have been games that went on through the 50s and the 60s that we didn't hear about, but this wasn't in Mississippi. This wasn't in Georgia. This wasn't in Alabama. This wasn't in Louisiana. Okay? Texas, Florida. This was in Wisconsin, Indiana, and you got to believe it was Michigan. Indiana's right next door. Our people lose sight based on all the things that are in between us from that point to now. And that's a problem because forgetting things, we're really good at forgetting things. You got to think of a lot of our ancestors. I look back at my grandmother was born in 1920. Her mother was born into the 1890s. Those people forgot more than we'll ever know because of the brutality that they experienced in the South and hell, even coming to the North. But the stuff that they experienced in the South was nothing that they wanted to carry around. So they were trained, they were socially engineered into forgetting it. So they didn't carry it around. Because you got to understand how many manic killers that we would have had in Black America if all of our ancestors now would have carried around that hate that had been displayed and dispersed on them. They would have killed so many people once they got their so-called freedom. Once they felt like, you know what? I'm good. I'm up here. I'm here. They still went out and killed somebody based on what had happened to them. Sister Shannon brought up a good comment as I was cooking on the recast. Slavery continued into the 1960s in Mississippi. Into the 1960s. Dr. Martin Luther King down there marching, and they still had slaves. You can't tell me that this is something that doesn't need to be checked out. And where people could really dig their heels in it, and I know they're not, and that's why I'm at their helmet the way I am, is the Black church. Preachers need to be talking about this more than I do. All the old Black church members, you don't think that they've experienced things like this, that they saw things like this? But now your preacher don't care nothing about that. Just put that envelope in the coffer, Brother Johnson. Don't worry about none of that foolishness. That's in the past. That's in the past. That's why I ain't letting it ride. County fairs, state fairs, you know, you got to know. And these types of things they don't like to talk about. But see, the reason I'm bringing this out today is because I'm tired of every time that I go down to watch television, and I don't usually get here. I'm actually home a lot earlier than I normally am. I'm here today, and I guarantee you that I could go downstairs at 8 o'clock and I could find some type of slave movie on right now. And I'm not talking about like Underground, okay? I'm not talking about where the Black folks got to kicking that ass. I'm talking about that one where they always love to show the little young girl, she falls in love with the slave master, this, that, and the other. They try to make it seem like they had romantic scenes. These women were being raped. There was nothing romantic about a slave master having sex with one of the Black slaves. No, there was none of that. They make it seem like it's just, you know, so romantic. No, it's not romantic. This was rape. Things that we talk about a lot, the romanticizing of slavery. That's why I don't really get into a lot of these new slave pictures, because they always want to make it seem like this was just not only the way of life, but we liked it. We liked it. And they always get that one female slave that ends up getting raped. It's not making love. It's not having sex. They're being raped against their will. Now, what may happen eventually is they may just not fight just so they can get it over with. But they make it seem as if these were relationships that were happening on these plantations. No, they were daily rapes. Daily. And people have gotten to the point where, well, you know, the slaves had relationships with their over. No, they didn't have relationships, man. People were being raped. And then when you want to flip it around, you can flip it around to the men too. Yeah, I know the mistresses would go out into the field and they'd look for that Mandinka spirit. Absolutely. She wanted that thing. She knew her man didn't have that thing. She wanted that thing. And she'd have him come up to the big house when he was off doing whatever he needed to do. And he was saying, yeah, 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 yeah. And then she get what she wanted out of the deal. Mandinka, I can't really say that them brothers was really having fun. Some of them might have been, but they was also tearing them men up. Because once the master might have found out that his wife was getting jabbed and there wasn't no vaccine, that's when they did that real dirt. They used to emasculate brothers, laying them out, tying them up, sodomizing them. You can't tell me that they didn't do that in retaliation to them knowing that they were straight up pummeling their wives. He knew he didn't have the equipment to do what he was already getting done, what she was getting done to her. So he was like, you know what? I'm just going to do you in front of your wife, in front of your kids, in front of all your brothers. That just lets you know how low down and dirty they were. And don't tell me that the LGBTQIAP wasn't around then. That's gay. That's gay. That's gay rape during slavery. They were being raped. They put it into their mood when they put these movies together, these series together. And right now, in the midst of your Black History Month, there seems to be an uptick in slave pictures. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I've seen a slave movie and or series episode every single day of the 10 days of this month. You might not have, but I have. I absolutely have. So I'm just trying to tell you, the way I see things now, I see things totally different. That's why celebrating Black history, what do you want me to keep doing? You want me to keep celebrating Muhammad Ali and Hank Aaron and Charles Drew. And, I used to celebrate Ben Carson. It's hard to celebrate that motherfucker no more. I can celebrate his medical accomplishments, but I can't celebrate his last 4 years. Okay. All the Black inventors that we've had, we just want to keep that carousel going as if that's what we want to celebrate. No, let's celebrate this. Let's celebrate the bullshit that Black people have been put through for the last umpteen years. Because Uh-oh. My fault. Sorry about that, y'all. I was talking, but I was saying here the evilness of it all. The evilness of it all. What Shannon said here. Many of the women, including those in the big house, gave themselves to hopefully keep the slave owner / overseer from killing off or selling one of our people. The evil sickness of these predators. This is what our women had to do to keep the families together. This is why I had such a problem with what Jason Whitlock said. This is why I had a problem with it. I had a problem with what he said about single mothers raising children, single black mothers. He didn't say it about white women. He said it about black women. This is Jason talking. And because I know him in a different spirit, like I said, I know Jason Whitlock from when he was here in Ann Arbor covering the Fab Five years ago. Sorry for that muting. Hopefully I wasn't gone too long there. But this was so prophetic. They would give themselves in hopes of keeping their family together. You'll never hear Jason Whitlock talk about things like this. You'll never hear him say things about this. You'll never hear him talk. You'll never hear him talk. Dang. I was gone for 2-3 minutes. My fault. Because I was still hooked into that stream. My fault. You'll never hear him talk about single white mothers. But you'll always hear him talk about single black mothers and how detrimental they are. So I basically just encapsulated what I had spoke about during that time, because I think I was down from the last time that I spoke there. This is who our black women were. And for the most part, it's still who they are. They will still do pretty much what they need to do to keep their families together. Now, we've got some out here who won't do nothing for their family. But that's who a black woman was. That's who I knew. That's who raised me. She did what she needed to do to keep her family intact. Now, I'm not saying that my mother ever had to endure any of this situation, but I'm sure at some point, someone in my family had to give themselves in hopes of keeping their family intact. But you won't hear that come from people like Jason Whitlock. I ain't muting no more. Whatever y'all hear in the background, y'all gonna hear. I hate when I do that. That's the second or third time I've done that since I started using this deck, and I don't like that. There won't be any more muting. You gonna hear the noises, you're gonna catch all the noises. It actually upsets me when I do that. It's very unprofessional. Well, let me cook some more on this, because understanding where we are and who we are out here. We are the game. We are still the prey in today's system, just as we were in yesterday's system. That is, it's umpteen. I mean, it was 1950s. This shit wasn't no 1800s, 1700s, 1600s. This was in the 1950s. I'm just sitting there right now.
What was this one?
Here I go.
Thing.
I was reading some stuff back then. I wanted to make sure I had all my data right. And I think I'm getting close to the end.
African dip, which appears to have made its debut during the summer of 1910, involved black men being dunked in a water tank every time a target was hit. So when you see a dunk tank at a carnival, understand that a dunk tank started because they wanted to dunk black men into a tank of water by hitting it with a baseball. Now, I guess this was a step up from actually hitting a black man or a black child in the head. So they just put them into a dunk tank, and usually when you saw them, they didn't have no shirts on. They had some cut off blue jean shorts and shit. They looked like they had just ran off of a plantation, and they just sitting there. And they probably told them to go out there and you smile. They said this little boy was smiling. This little boy couldn't have been happy. Said he was.
See, and these types of things, even though I've always been, pretty decent with tossing a ball, shooting, whatever, I've never really liked these type of games. I've never really liked throwing balls at targets and making somebody drop down into the water. I know they have these type of hit a nigger baby type games still where they usually use a clown face or something. And the clown may duck out before you actually hit it. Well, you didn't have the option to duck out as a black person back in the day. You had to keep your head there. And what type of breaking did they have to do to make you keep your head there, knowing the ball is going to be coming right at you? How many times did somebody have to back away, then get beat to make sure that they didn't move? And they probably just tell them, hey, if you do get hit, we'll lay you up for repairs.
Grinning. He was grinning. It used to be just 5 cents to throw at a colored gentleman's head. And every time you hit it, a cigar was your reward. So they want a cigar. They want a cigar to hit a black man in the head with a baseball. But it has now changed along with the progressive era. Sorry. Here's the way it's played now. The lip is so arranged that every time a baseball hits the target of a colored man seated upon the bar, is thrown into a large pool of water. Okay, so they're talking about the tank. I thought they were talking about, let me go back. And they got a Jim Crow museum at Ferris State University. I didn't know that. Maybe when COVID's over, I'll go check that shit out. A Jim Crow museum. I wonder why. I wonder what Big Rapids was known for. I wonder where they got all them artifacts up in Big Rapids. Must have been some shit happening up in Big Rapids. I know a few people that went to Ferris State. I'd like to check that out. I'd absolutely like to check that out.
And since then, I've looked into that, and I definitely want to take some kids up there and show them the Jim Crow Museum. I think it'd be a worthwhile field trip. I know a lot of people, they get off on taking kids to athletic events. I'd like to take them to the Jim Crow Museum in Big Rapids. Let's go on up there. Let's spend the night, build, take some young men. I want to see some young men understand and learn their history. I don't have anything against girls. Obviously, I raise girls. But I also understand that some of the things that you're going to talk about and you're going to see, it might not always be appropriate for young women. But the men need to understand what we were subjected to. They need to understand that. And that's how we rebuild our collective. And as we're repaired, we rebuild with strong men. Not middle of the road men, strong men. Because they don't mind the building of a weak nation. They don't mind having a weak nation build. The weaker, the better for them. But if we rebuild with strength, that's going to be a problem in America. Not if, when.
So, I mean, you're just talking about something that they did to us, not only to make fun of us, not only to belittle us. This was actual entertainment for them. This was entertainment. They couldn't think of anything else entertaining to do other than beating us in the head with baseballs, eggs, rocks, whatever they could find. And they did this at children's day camps and overnight camps, as well as carnivals and fairs, amusement parks. This was a main attraction. And when people say, you know, that was so long ago, 1950s. See, if you want to talk about slavery ending in 1865, that's one thing. But then from 1865 all the way up to 1950s, look at the detriment there. And then from the 1950s all the way to 2021. I was talking about it earlier. I just read about a Minnesota Timberwolves basketball player was just sentenced to 120 days for pointing a gun, which I'm not condoning. People were on his property and he told them to go away. They didn't go away, pulled his gun out. And then when the police showed up, they could smell marijuana. And I don't know what kind of laws Minnesota has, but they smelled marijuana and they were able to get a search warrant. And when they got a search warrant, they found a large amount of marijuana and a gun that was stolen. I don't know why an NBA player has a stolen gun in his house. It's not my business. You can well enough afford to equip yourself with a gun in every room of your house and have it be legal. I don't know why he had a stolen gun. It's a whole nother situation. Now, the fact that they were able to arrest him, try him and convict him and sentence him from September to today shows even more disrespect for George Floyd and George Floyd's family, because George Floyd was killed on Memorial Day weekend of last year. And not one of the 4 individuals that are being charged in his murder have been brought to justice yet. But you were.
So that's good. That clip dated where I did this. They still had not convicted the people who killed George Floyd. And speaking about that, I don't even remember what that Minnesota Timberwolves player's name was. They show us they are swift to justice when it's us, when we're on trial. And you better believe these 5 animals that killed Tyree, I don't believe they'll make it out of this year. I think their trials will all happen this year. They going down this year. I'm not sure why there'd be a delay anyway. And they want to get this one out the paint because there's more stuff that Memphis has to worry about, I'm sure. And I'm sure CJ Davis is just clinging right now, making sure that she doesn't go down with this ship. She stinks up the joint everywhere she goes. I do not like her. And the fact that these 5 individuals were in a so-called elite unit, the Scorpions were an elite unit. And when I think of elite, I think of higher. You don't get to just be elite because you can do something that someone else can't do, but that's really what they could do. That's why they were considered elite. They didn't even answer to standard radio calls. They were just rogues. Being in the unit that they were in, they were just roguing through Memphis. Going through Memphis talking about this is our town. It's documented. The Scorpion unit said they ran Memphis. And I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to hear from Omega Psi-Phi. Where is Omega Psi-Phi at on the 3 animals that killed Tyre? The 3 animals that killed Tyre, 3 out of the 5 were Omega Psi-Phis. Not the one that he was tapping that old cootie. See, Tyre got killed because he was tapping the cat of somebody else's ex. That's why he got killed. She told him she didn't want him no more. She liked skateboards, and he got mad. He gonna be sitting up in prison literally for some cat that he wasn't even getting no more. I mean, I tell you, I've tried to explain it to young men. That thing will drive you crazy if you let it. It'll drive you crazy if you let it. You got to be able to control yourself when it comes to the cookie. You got to be able to control yourself. And if you can't control yourself, it will control you.
We were able to bring someone to justice, an NBA player, who it's kind of hard to catch those guys because they're moving around and, you know, they're doing this and doing that. But you were able to bring him to justice from September to now over some bullshit, marijuana. And they said he pointed a gun at somebody, so I'm not calling that bullshit, but I am, you know what I mean. Nobody's been brought to justice. Who's had a pretrial hearing? Anybody had a pretrial hearing? I haven't heard of anything happening with George Floyd's case. Now, I know they're going to try to say there's a whole bunch of complexities and this, that, and the other, and that's the reason why all 4 of them motherfuckers are walking around on the street. Free. After murdering a man in the middle of the street in front of the world, and they're walking around free. But who's saying anything? Who's putting pressure on anybody? And this is why I say we have a former AG. We have a former district attorney as our vice president. Y'all want to salute her because she's black? She watched that black man die just like you did. She pressing that AG in Minnesota? She pressing that district attorney in Minneapolis? Hell no. One of the longest tenured senators in captivity is now the president. Who's he attacking? Is he attacking the mayor of that city? Is he attacking the governor of that state? He should be on their ass to bring those assholes to justice. But they ain't doing that shit. And I know we all deep in COVID and they trying to get people this and trying to get people that shot. But what came first, the chicken or egg? What came first, George Floyd or this NBA player? Because George Floyd's case should have came up in the docket before this NBA player. How has that happened? When you make sense of that, then you might be able to make sense of why black people had baseballs and eggs and rocks and sticks and whoever the fuck knows thrown at them as a carnival game. This is moments in our history, moments in American history. That's all it is.
So I go on, and if you want to catch that one, it's Moments in Black History on Freeman Media's channel. Goes back a couple years. I got so many videos up there. If you really want to hear that whole stream, you can go check it out. That's mainly what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to really show where I have evolved, because I haven't evolved that much off of my ideologies. And once again, I apologize for that 2-3 minute gap. Y'all saw my lips moving, wasn't things happening, but I basically pulled it back together once I saw my mute buttons on. But I ain't going mute no more. That's the second or third time I've done that, and I feel like a schlep when I do that. I'll be honest with you, but I do it just so you don't hear some of the background noises when I'm moving around in here. But forget all that. Y'all gonna hear all this from this point on. But that's what I was speaking on today, day 2 of Black History Month. We were the game. We were literally the game. And it's an unfortunate situation that we were the game. We were the prey. We were the victimized. We were actually sometimes the murdered. I mean, when they said they had to lay him up for repairs, he's got brain damage. He was hit in the cranium. Hey, get Big John off the hit a nigger baby game or hit a nigger game, whatever they called it when it was a grown man. Because it wasn't a hit a nigger baby. That's when they was actually hitting our children. What was it, just a hit a nigger when he was a grown man? Get Big John off that one and let him do something else. No, they laid you up for repairs. Repairs. I don't know what you could do back then. I don't know that they were doing brain surgery back then. Repairs? When the knot went down, you had a big knot on your head. So what kind of repairs did you get? You weren't repaired. You weren't healed. Your injury just might have not shown anymore. It might have just not shown anymore. So I want to thank the YMCA for starting a tradition that carried on through the 1950s. Started in London. So for all y'all that say, oh, London, they don't have any racism over there. Okay. They started this. And it came over to America. And then they started printing up their own baseballs. African Dodger. Hit a nigger baby. That's what they thought of us then. And that's what many still think of us now. But I'm not so concerned with that because most of them cowards ain't going to step to you one way or another anyway. What we need to focus on is ourselves and building our collective up. We're not going to be repaired without pressure, our pressure that we put on the United States government. Anything that anybody's doing in individual states, it's a beautiful thing. But anybody that knows anything knows it all happens in Washington for national repair. But it's day 2. We only got 26 more days to either do something with or waste them. I don't want to hear about it being the coldest month. I don't want to hear about it being the shortest month. What I want to hear about is what you going to do with your 28 days. I already know what I'm going to do with my 28 days. I'm not going to be the game. I'm not going to be the get. I'm not going to be the prey. That ain't even me. That ain't even my thing. I don't believe, for one, I don't believe that I could ever put myself in a position for somebody to say, hey, this is a game that we got. We think it would be really, really entertaining, Shannon. You get into a tank and we're going to throw balls and we're going to dunk you in the tank. Or you stick your head through this hole and we're going to throw beanbag. I ain't going to let nobody throw no baseball at me. I don't give a shit. If you throw a baseball at me, I got a mitt on. But we're going to do this and we're just going to throw beanbags at you. Or balloons filled with flour. And when they hit you, they're just going to explode and you'll have flour out. That shit doesn't appeal to me at all. But I know some people who would allow it. I've seen people do it. Oh, yeah. I've seen people do the dunk tank. I've seen people allow people to hit them with things. I can't do that. That's not me. I'm not cut like that, as they say. And I'll never, ever be cut like that. Couldn't see it, bruh. Sis, whatever. Couldn't see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on out of here. I get the baby in a few hours here. But it's day 2. I might have something else. You know, like I said, I got to get this right. I'm going to go do some check-in to see how many casts I did get off in the month of January, see where I fell short of, because I know I didn't meet my goal. Well, I got to meet my goal this month, and I've got to catch up for what I lost in January. Can't make it up. I just got to catch up because I'm only in a contest against myself. So I got to catch up to myself. But I appreciate everybody that's checked out the cast. Brother Larry, great having you in here today. As always, free. Sister Shanna coming through. I appreciate y'all. Sister Tony, appreciate you. Who else came in here early? Kai Stone, appreciate you. I don't get that many, but the ones I get, they on point. Definitely appreciate y'all. But yeah, we're going to do it again. Just because it's our month, we're going to talk the way we talk. And just because it's not the most positive situation that I might be talking about, or the most positive outcome that I may be talking about, don't think I'm not celebrating, because I'm celebrating, yes, where we come from and where we're going. Absolutely. So y'all be good, be safe, and hell, it don't matter what part of the country you're in right now. Stay warm, because I even saw California hit the 40s and the 50s. Y'all must be out y'all mind out there right now. We sitting on a hot 16 degrees. So I don't want to hear your complaints. One love.
This revolution is filled with so many ironies, really. First, you tell us that it is manly to keep your word, right? If you are a man, you keep your word. And now all of the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well, then show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well, then stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all. Or else admit to us that you're not a man. You're a bird. You're afraid of us. You're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground, that we will match you and we will override you.